Hello and welcome to Being Reintegrated. Thank you first and foremost to my subscribers. This podcast is going to be amazing because of you. I know everybody says that. What is it that is so amazing about this that you should support? So, through the years, I had learned through the ICES Liber. This is a story, by the way. ICES Libers of the Elucoan. When I went to research the Elucoan, I could find little to nothing in the public market. When I went to the public market, all I found was a couple of very disparate, unconnected things. So I worked on it and I found the people who were in charge of the publication of the ICES Libers and who perpetuated the work that in the very, very end of the series that I had. There's probably more out there that I don't have, but the series that I had was part of a Gnostic priesthood. And that Gnostic priesthood had continued through a couple of people, and so I found some names, and then I started drilling down into trying to find a living representative of this stuff that I couldn't figure out on my own. So I became a member of that person's groups and trying to be anonymous on purpose. I mean, I could blast a bunch of names and you can go chase the same rabbit hole, or you can just listen to a story. And again, thank you for your subscription. Uh, I became a part of this group, and then I met one of their bishops who I really connected with through esotericism and occultism. I became a devotee of that bishop, and they basically sent me out as a knight into the world of the Elucoan. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but they had faith and hope that I was going to be able to accomplish this goal. And eventually, what happened is I became friends with the GM, who was the archivist of the only extant Elucoan order in operation in America, the United States. So that group folded, but the archivists started their own group with some other individuals. So that's how that goes. Anyway, this person had an inordinate obsession over the Elucoan like I did and do. So what happened is me and him collaborated, and he had amazing organizational power. And so he got people interested through marketing, and he was a doctrinal arm of the order. And I was hidden just researching with him, providing materials and working on it hand in hand pretty much. So we got into the era of Serge Callier, and unfortunately he is no longer with us. And so what happened is his order experienced for the first time the reconstruction of the blue band of the Elucoan. In the meantime, there were plans to do other things, but it wasn't ever actuated due to unfortunate circumstances. So we experienced the blue band, the black band. He had just finished the red band, and clarification over the Cohen grades. And I was helping work on some other stuff privately, which, I was constantly chided, don't do that. That has nothing to do with your degree. And I'm like, you don't know what I came here for. So I came for the actual Elucoan. I didn't come for Martinism proper. But, I stayed for Martinism as the Elucoan was slowly revealed. And what happened is I became knowledgeable in the Elucoan in a way that the ICES Libers did not give information on. So that was really cool. And then I became a somewhat archivist myself. Although I didn't have the orders stuff, I had stuff from France, and I had collected some rituals and stuff. So I was starting to be able to put things together. So fast forward a couple of years, I now became the guy on being reintegrated. And by the way, if you're irritated because I'm using the words I, me, and my, I'm irritated by using them myself. But in normal conversational English, you gotta use the pronouns. I apologize. The personal view can be a little annoying, but I promise you, keep your mind straight, because I'm not here to perpetuate to you some kind of psychological dynamic where I'm your fearless leader. So if you're projecting that, take it back. I already am aware of those areas, and that's not the case here. It's simply a story about how yours truly went through a bunch of Elukoan stuff. So anyway, we got to, we, meaning me and my research friends, got to the work of George Quartz and the Green Book. I obtained, for the first time, the George Quartz's books in our group. The GM had them, but he passed, and I don't know if they were ever referenced again because I didn't even see them at his library when I visited his private home and temple of the order. So I don't know what happened to them, or if they were just a private thing in the file cabinets of the Elukoan. So with the Society of Martinez de Pasquale and some of this work that we were doing, I was able to get a good feeling for what we were working with. So I started to understand Livre Vert in a way that no one else did, because the 3 volumes of commentary by George Quartz is so indispensable to the understanding of the Elukoan. Robert Ombelain said that it was the secret document of all Elukoan ritual. Now, I'm not here to argue about anybody's perspectives. And George Quartz goes quite a long time on that perspective itself. So who am I to say that it's not true? What I'm here to say, though, is that as Ombelain and Amadou, unfortunately, are passed, we have to have people that pick up the mantle, so to speak, of the work of doing translation, transcription, making available. And so that's what my kind of job is to do as a researcher. And I have now researched all the way into the red band, or not red band, into the Rocroi teachings of the Elukoan. In George Quartz's French volumes, you'll be able to see for yourself the reconstruction, although you got to be able to read French. So I have a method that I am now reading. So I will show pictures of it on the actual post of screenshots of what I did. So far I got volume 1 down to a method, and I am transcribing and freely translating the 3-volume set of George Quartz. Now, I don't know if I'm going to make this available due to copyright, but I definitely have it, and we will talk through it. I can promise you that. I can just say, hey, reference this book, and I'll know actually what it is now. So I'm on chapter 3, and, the first 2 chapters are kind of boring. You're reading some history stuff, and we're going into the actual study of the Green Book. So, excuse that. So we're going into the study of the Green Book. So what we have is pretty much a loose translation of all 3 volumes of George Quartz. And that is due strictly to subscribers encouraging and actually monetarily donating to this work. Because if you didn't, I couldn't continue. I'm a human being like everyone else. And, there's bills to pay, but it's not a big deal about money. But donations and subscriptions are definitely appreciated. And I would name names, but that's a little weird. The podcast is just starting, so as we get to 100, 200, maybe even 1,000 mark, depending on your guys's and encouragement, enthusiasm, engagement. If you share this stuff, subscribe. I mean, this is all your stuff. This is the A. Cohen research that we should have had, but it was kept in French for some reason. Now, I don't know if there's a French conspiracy with the folks at Argony, if they want to just keep their material and not share with the English, if the English are just too lazy, if French is a difficult language to translate into English. All that stuff is to be considered. But the fact of the matter is that the human beings who were identified with these positions of the A. Cohen were absolutely not French in their expression of the doctrine. It's not a French doctrine, and that's what we need to understand. It uses an analysis through ritual, through magic, through spiritual terms, through Masonic order structures to present information that you normally wouldn't get in those organizations. It's possibly a priesthood, but it's a certain kind of priesthood. After having studied everything, I can actually say that, and learned the whole system, I'm pretty much going to lean on the fact that the initiations are kind of like Vajrayana empowerments. As you get initiations, you get access to more and more of the egregore of the A. Cohen. And as you get access to the egregore, you're able to use spiritual entities to obtain certain spiritual powers, culminating in a ceremony in the very end where you've exercised your powers away from the forces that may have them, utilize them for bad purposes, whatever the current conspiratorial obsession is with ruling cabals. I mean, it addresses that. And it's not like there's a world power that's out there trying to take away your money, nothing like that. It's that our powers of the soul have been taken from us, and the only thing given to us was the power of, what was left. And that is not a soul power. That is a beginning and ending human experience of corporeality. So, this last power is something that we were allowed to keep. And it's so weird that it's called the power because I reference it again, in Louis Claude de Saint-Martin's book to the Cohens, the instructions he gave to the Cohens, which I translated up there, you'll see that the good power, so to speak, that we all call good and that everybody is called the great angel or whatever you may call it. That's not my point. My point is to show that that is a fragmented view of what it actually is. In the Treaties of Blessings, which I've said multiple times, but which is true, so it's just going to be repeated over and over, the spirits of decay, the spirits of decomposition, those kind of forces are already included in the whole structure of Martinez. In fact, he neatly evades the entire situation by saying that the Eternal, who is the emanator of these powers, has nothing to do with secondary powers. With secondary causes is what he calls it in the treatise of reintegration of beings. So secondary causes are the things that are created from both the good and the bad of these creational forces. Super awesome stuff, because what it's saying is that the eternal emanated beings that had the power to use their will, and they used their will sometimes for the sake of nature and sometimes for the sake of intellect, is what he calls it. But during that time in the 16th century, We just had the advent of scientific rationalism. And so what was happening is you had this group of shamanistic, kind of priests, which for all intents and purposes they were. It's not intensive purposes, by the way. All intents and purposes, they were priests and potentially bishops. And they were doing the sacramental theology based on the old occult vibe of Agrippian magical practice, so to speak. It's not easy to say because, as you'll find out through Amadou and through some of the researchers into Martinez, he was influenced highly by astrology. It was partially scientific rationalism. It was partially an aberrant, we're not going to accept scientific rationalism, neo-Kantianism, and then there were elements of it that were absolutely shamanic and probably came from a shamanic group of practitioners that learned some of these African diaspora things from voodoo, on and on and on. There's many areas of overlap in the Elukoan. So that goes to what I'm saying. In this book of the Green Book, you're actually learning how to reawaken this understanding through a entity called La Chose, the Thing. La Chose is the expressed force of what Jung called the spirit of the depths. So what we often call the unconscious is represented in the Elukoan. So it's beyond psychology and the psychological typification of types in the Bible and their stories. It goes beyond that. It goes to a theurgical priesthood of actually getting back some of these creative forces which were taken from those secondary causes. So it does have a demonic element to it. It has a little bit of a demonic element to it, not in the sense of Christian and Catholicism and their dogma, but we did fall is part of the entire mythos of the Elukoan. We fell, and unfortunately for us, we had someone who, or something, who was aware of our fall and was able to hold for us protection from a complete fall in perpetuity. So the tradition exists to celebrate this methodology of obtaining back our powers, so to speak, from the creative forces, which are neither good nor bad. They're just creative forces. It's like electricity. Electricity is an amazing tool. It can help us do videos. It can help us communicate. It can help us even translate 3 volumes of George Quartz. However, mishandled, electricity can also kill you and take you completely off of this plane of consciousness. So it's important to realize that these neutral forces are neither good nor bad, but our sense of us makes them good or bad. And so this is partly what we're going to encounter in the work of the Elukoan, is our sense of who we are. In the first degree of the Martinist proper, it says, if you knew who you are, you would have nothing else to seek here, and therefore we couldn't do anything for you. So if you nosed who you are, you would not need to see these podcasts on being reintegrated, nor go through the work of the Green Book and reclaim your lost powers. I'm so grateful to be able to do this with everyone. I'm so happy that you're subscribers. Keep it going, because this is truly going to be a new turning of the Elukoan doctrine that we didn't have before. In the information age, we're able to, in the English-speaking language, get information on the Elukoan that was never available. So Thank you once again for your subscription, and I hope you enjoy Being Reintegrated, introduction to George Cortz's The Great Manuscript of Algiers.